Okay, so good evening, Dr. Collins and class. My research topic is limb prosthesis. The topics I'll be covering are what is a limb prosthetic, showing examples of what they look like, the story behind the creation and the implementation to the Civil War, the need and the reasoning why this industry exploded, the impacts on society and the people with these prosthetics, and lastly I'll be covering the significance of this technology today. So, to understand this presentation, we must ask ourselves, what is a prosthetic? So as depicted in the picture to the right, is a man-made device which is intended to replace a missing limb or feature of an individual. This device can enable those who have lost their legs to walk again, like this leg prosthetic depicted. The point of the prosthetic is for the individual to feel as if they have not lost a part of themselves, that they can come into society as a whole body. It substitutes the part of the body which is missing from either birth or an accident or from an amputation. So now that we've kind of covered what a prosthetic is, we will move on to the different types of prosthetics. So some examples of prosthetics are limbs, fingers, hands, feet, eyes, breasts, and facial replacements, all these things all over the planet. As depicted to the right, we see a wide range of prosthetics. At the top is a Civil War era hand replacement, which is affixed with a hook to enable the individual to have functionality in everyday life even though they are missing a hand. The left photo depicts a World War I era leg. This leg is unique in the sense that it has posable joints, which enables the user a more natural gait to their walk and a more comfortable walk while doing everyday tasks. We see in the rightmost photo a pretty modern prosthetic hand which is power operated. This enables the user to grab onto objects and even type as seen in the photo. Knowing the types of prosthetics that we see primarily throughout the Civil War / post is limb prosthesis. And now that we know what a prosthetic is and the different types, we can obtain a richer understanding of this history. A question you may be asking is, what are the origins of prosthetics? Well, as of now, historians aren't exactly sure where this technology dates to, but depicted in the lower right is a 3,000-year-old big toe prosthetic. This was of Egyptian origins and is one of the oldest prosthetics found. Another prosthetic was in Naples in the upper right and is of a leg. This dates back to 300 BCE. These examples show how old this technology is and the varying methods it was used. It is hard to say just how old they are, just how old this technology is, since there are many writings and mythological stories that reference prosthetics being used, like in Herodotus. But we're really interested in the history of the Civil War and how the Civil War impacted this development of technology. So many of you also can be asking, why is this important? How is this a part of the Civil War? Well, to answer that, we must look at an individual named James Edward Hanger. This is the individual depicted to the right. He was an injured Confederate soldier who lost his leg above the knee to a cannonball. He was captured and treated by Yankee surgeons who gave him a peg leg. For those who don't know what a peg leg is, it's a piece of wood from a log which is fitted to an individual's leg, which is cut to length based off the person's height and what's remaining. This basic prosthetic was very uncomfortable and cumbersome to walk around since it's just a big stick of wood. And he was upset with this and he was uncomfortable, so he created an ergonomically hollow leg which allowed joint movement, which in turn enabled him to regain some of his natural walking abilities. He brought up his innovation to the States, and he was contracted by the States to create limb prosthetics for Confederate veterans. This was quite a feat since many individuals who engaged in the rebellion were not eligible for federal spending for prosthetics. His individual allowed prosthetics to be lightweight, hinge at both the knee and the foot to allow individuals to walk normally again, and this marked the end of peg legs and simple hooks for this technology. He created Hager Inc., Is this company still around today, creating and developing new prosthetics for comfort, functionality, with individuals fighting over contracts to create prosthetics and to create more comfortable yet functional prosthetics. It surged the market to develop greater, more sophisticated artificial limbs, which we benefit from today. And as we've seen, a lot of these programs that were funding their own for the Confederates were Virginia and North Carolina. So we go into the need and the why. So as depicted in the upper right is Private William from the 53rd Pennsylvania Infantry Regiment, a Union soldier to be specific. He was a W amputee from his arms from fighting. Individuals like him had to have their limbs removed even if they were not separated from their body because of the risk of infection. During this time, antiseptic medicine was not invented yet. Leaving the open wound in an unsterile environment made infection a guarantee. The use of medical equipment not being meticulously cleaned between each use ran the risk of blood infection as well. This led to a 70% of wounds affecting limbs to be amputated because it decreased the mortality rate to only 28%. The use of new bullets and weapons of war created more internal damage to an individual. Thus, the easiest way to treat a limb was to cut it off and try to keep this new wound clean. Near 30,000 Union soldiers and 40,000 Confederate soldiers lost their limbs during a 4-year period, as seen from 1861 to 1865. These numbers are skewed due to the lack of record keeping and the overload of actual amputations during this time period, so these numbers can be way higher. The need for prosthetics was never so clear. With the average age of a soldier only being 25, it was imperative that they could come back into society and become a part of the workforce. Without prosthetics, it would have maimed thousands from work or integrating back into society. And we see from the bottom right are two brothers. We don't really know their origins, it's just a photo, but the one on the left lost his leg. So, the impact on people. So while researching, I came across Walter Lenore. He was struck by a mini ball, which is a gunshot, to the right leg during the Battle of Ox Hill in 1862. A record of his journal was found and it wrote, "First, I thought of my favorite sport of trout fishing, which I would have to give up. Then I thought of skating, swimming, and partridge hunting." He also talked about his pursuit in love and how his injury leaving him a cripple would leave him unloved, uncared for, and alone. So in this time, society saw individuals with disfigurements like loss of limb affecting his ability to be a man. If a male could not be a man, then he had nothing in his life. He would have been cast out from society for not being able to provide for his family or satisfy his wife. Losing a limb was more than a physical ailment, but a mental one, which would drive individuals to alcoholism and depression. Since majority of fighting and amputations during the Civil War were men of age of trying to start a family and continue, their loss of limbs, it would have destroyed them. With the creation of more realistic, functional, and cheaper prosthetics, it allowed the men during this time to reintegrate into society. So the photo on the right depicts not Walter, but another individual who was a double amputee, as you can see, his right leg being all the way above the knee and his left leg being below the knee, but the two prostheses allow him to the right, as you see, to be able to stand up and have a more natural look. So, without the advancement of prosthetics during the American Civil War, wars like World War I and World War II would not have had access to such functional prosthetics. As depicted to the right is a World War I soldier who lost half of their face. With advancements of prosthetics from the Civil War and the integration of synthetic materials to make prosthetics, society was able to create him a face that resembles his original one. On the left is a prosthetic which has a realistic hand which allows the user to grab onto objects and working joints to enable higher range of mobility. This prosthetic is also enhanced by the attachment feature of more comfortable straps and cushions to lessen the hardship of the user. War is a constant in human society, and the technological advancements of war throughout time create deadlier and more violent conflicts. With the innovation of prosthetics, we can render aid to those stricken by the ravages of war. We can enable them to come back into society completely. This also applies to those born without limbs or in accidents. The use of this technology to help those feel a part of society and not be ostracized by their neighbors allows them to live a more functional and mentally healthy life. So, lastly, we ask ourselves, what is the significance of prosthetics during the Civil War? Without this development of this industry and technology, we would not be able to help the millions of Americans and even more millions of people across the world with limb loss. Without the Civil War, this industry would have been behind the curve for the much larger wars like World War I and World War II, or even all the conflicts occurring today. This technological advancement has enabled individuals with leg loss to be able to compete in Olympic running, swimming, skiing, pole vaulting, etc. This technology enables individuals to take back their lives and do what they've always dreamed. As depicted in the photo are carbon fiber blades which have been meticulously designed for ergonomics of movement and speed to allow runners enough spring and resistance to push off and run at high speeds while only having one or no legs. There also comes into play that post-Civil War, the federal government saw such a need that they started programs to research prosthetic development. Some of these programs exist today and are under the umbrella of DARPA. They are aiding combat veterans who have lost their sight, limbs, and even hearing, all free from these programs started in the Civil War. Prosthetic research has aided individuals afflicted with cancers from bone, breast, and other forms of cancer, creating new jobs for people so that they can speak. Even dentures are a form of prosthetics. Without the need and the increased development from the Civil War, these research programs would have not been where they are today. The replacement surgeries and prosthetics are readable and functional. The prosthetic industry has allowed afflicted individuals to gain back functionality and reintegrate into society. From wooden peg legs to carbon fiber running blades, Civil War played an instrumental part in creating the vehicles of research to bring this technology where it is today. I'm grateful you have all listened to my project, and I thank you for your time and your patience. Enjoy your winter break and enjoy your families.